Hey everyone, I'm excited for today's video because it's my first Q&A ever. I've been meaning to do this for a long time because honestly, I love Q&A videos. Every time a channel I regularly watch puts out a Q&A video, I can't help but immediately watch it because I think it's so interesting. So often, first of all, they answer specific questions that I've been dying to know the answer about, or they'll just tell me more about themselves as a person, and somehow getting to know them better helps me understand their perspective better, and it's just interesting. This is just kind of a fun, relaxed, chatty video based on questions that you all sent me on Instagram. Now that I've done that, I also will say if you have more questions beyond these, feel free to add them to the comments of this video. And then if I ever make another Q&A video, I'll look back to this one to see some questions. And along with that, I also just want to say thank you if you did ask a question. I appreciate just the interest and engagement. You know, I'm just a random person, and for you to ask a question means a lot. And also just thanks for watching this video if you're watching. You know, I feel a little vulnerable and weird putting myself out there with a Q&A video just about my approach to minimalism and about me personally, and it feels a little scary to do that. So the fact that you're watching this, the fact that you're here supporting the channel means a lot. Okay, the first question I have is what has been the hardest part about minimalism for you? And honestly, I feel like my answer could go in a lot of different directions. Nothing springs out at me off the top of my head. But I do think overall something that's hard for me in general is being consistent about it. Basically, I go through spurts of really high motivation to declutter, to reduce or even quit shopping for a while. And I go through these little spurts of times where I'm super motivated, super on top of it. And then other times where I get busier or distracted with other things, or I'm just feeling like tired and overwhelmed and I don't engage with this stuff as much. So there are those ebbs and flows, and I think I try to address that in some of my content. Even with trying to find ways to be more consistent, I'm not always consistent. Strangely enough, this YouTube channel has really helped me keep on track, which is not necessarily something that's a strategy for everybody. Like, maybe you don't feel like starting a whole YouTube channel about it. But I do think when I'm regularly talking about these topics and thinking about them, planning videos, engaging with this stuff, I'm more likely to be thinking about it outside of those times and more likely to act on those impulses to declutter. If you're looking for ways to be more consistent, maybe even just engaging with this type of content more could be helpful. That also helps me. Or talking to a friend or family member, trying to keep it on the forefront of your mind a little bit more regularly could help. I think it's about getting back on the horse when I kind of fall off and not thinking like just because I haven't been doing any declutters recently doesn't mean I can't reinitiate that now. Like reducing that all or nothing thinking that sometimes my mind can go into. A second question I got was, how did you and your husband support each other through your respective career changes? That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I will say that Andy didn't really go through a career change. He's always been pursuing medicine, but he did go through like various stages of that process, which was really long. And that involved a lot of moves or changing his focus or his role. You know, when he did residency, he then decided to do a chief residency year and then decided to apply for cardiology fellowship, which he's about to start. So that was maybe a different journey than if he had just gone straight into internal medicine as an internist or a hospitalist doctor. But he didn't really go through a career change. I did. I was pursuing a career in psychology as a researcher and a therapist. I got my PhD. And then once I got that PhD, I was like, I'm going to switch careers and do something creative and do podcasting and YouTubing, photography and videography and a variety of other things. I do have a whole video about that career change and what worked for me in that process. If you're interested, I will link that below. This might be kind of an annoying answer, but I honestly think that somehow the core root of our relationship, of each of us truly, fully believing in each other, is what allowed us to successfully make those shifts or changes as we moved on in our careers. And I even think there are times where we've believed in each other more than in ourselves, which maybe also isn't the healthiest or best thing, but I do think there's something to be said for having a partner who just fully and wholly believes in you. Like, I know, for example, how capable Andy is, how hardworking he is, that he's humble about it, that he has the right priorities, that he always is striving to do a good job and to be a good doctor. He's not selfish about it, I think. I think he really wants to contribute and to help his patients. And he also just is willing to go, I think, that extra mile to research something and to educate himself. And I think that's where the humility comes in too, is to acknowledge, like, I don't always know everything. And so I'm going to go out and educate myself when there are areas that I don't know about. Like, I know he's so good at that and he really, really cares. And he's a hard worker. Each of us just believing in each other. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I really think that's what allowed each of us to give each other permission to spread our wings and to explore our interests and to pursue new paths, even if sometimes they were the harder paths, because we're just like, I believe in you, we are a partnership, and each of us gets chances here or there to pursue things that might be challenging. Okay, the next question is, what's your best decluttering strategy? And that is a tough question because I think there's so many decluttering strategies that I absolutely love. But I will say I made a recent video on this topic, so I will link it below, what I ultimately think is the best decluttering strategy. And I will give you a preview here, just saying that it essentially is to start living the way that you want to live and then realize that you can do it. And I know that sounds, again, kind of self-helpy or cliche. I think that if you just do the declutter of your home, even if you're putting some of the stuff kind of in storage for a period of time, but you declutter the areas where you're actively engaging with stuff, you will see what a big help it is, how it makes your life easier, and how you are capable of living in this more minimal way. And then you will find that it's easier to eliminate that stuff from your storage that you decluttered in the first place. So often the stuff we're telling ourselves, the lies we're telling ourselves, keep us from making the changes that we actually are capable of making. I talk way more about that in the video I'll link below, but I think that ultimately is the best strategy. It's about believing you can do it and then just making those initial changes to see for yourself that it is possible. So the next question somebody asked, what has helped you see the most YouTube growth? And I'm not sure about that because I think there are a lot of different factors that go into YouTube growth. I think something to keep in mind if you're pursuing a YouTube channel is just that there are ebbs and flows. Sometimes you get a lot of views, sometimes you get very few views. And that is normal and that is okay. Not is it only okay, but like you should expect that. But I also think for me, what's worked is having a combination of formulaic videos that I think my community might be interested in, and then kind of weird, kooky, new ideas that I'm willing to be vulnerable about and bring to the table. And sometimes those videos definitely flop and people don't like them or are bored by them, but sometimes those are the videos that tend to do the very best on my channel. I think don't be afraid to be kooky and to follow your interests, even if it's a video slightly outside your niche. The only way to expand your channel and grow your community is also to be genuinely you, and I think sometimes thinking of your community as a community as opposed to I'm making videos on this topic can help you go out and make the videos that interest you, that are unique to you, that will end up performing better. Because I really think sometimes the quote viral videos are actually videos where somebody is willing to do something just a little bit different from other people, and that allows the videos to perform better. I also just want to say, by the way, I got some really nice comments instead of just questions from a lot of you when I asked for those questions on Instagram. And they really meant a lot. Like someone said, just wanted to say you're the reason my 11-year-old was inspired to become a minimalist. And I think that's really sweet. I mean, I don't know how long that'll last for the 11-year-old, probably a short phase, but I don't know, just some of the comments that you all made were really, really kind. And thank you for those of you who sent me a little message. I wasn't able to respond to all of them just because there were quite a few, but I just want you to know if you sent a message, I really appreciated it. Another question is, how do you schedule your days/weeks with work, life, admin, to stay organized but keep simple. So honestly, I'm still figuring it out, and I think that's the case because my situation changes so much of the time. Whether I'm working a full-time job, whether I'm freelancing like little jobs here and there for different companies, and then fitting YouTube in. Like right now, I'm working full-time on a podcast, an audio documentary on a topic totally unrelated to this, and I'm working as a producer, basically interviewing people, writing the episodes. But it is always hard as a freelancer where my time shifts and the projects I'm working on shift. I do think that like right now where I'm working a typical 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 type of job, Monday through Friday, I do have to find ways to fit in my other work for YouTube or another freelancing gig I'm doing on the side as well. And so sometimes it involves taking advantage of when Andy is working weekends. I will take that weekend time and just do a full work day on the weekend, which I realize for some people isn't possible when you have families and things like that. And that may have to shift also once we have this baby. But so taking advantage of pockets of time where maybe I do really have time to myself. Also, maybe working for an hour in the morning before getting to my 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 type job, working for an hour, just responding to correspondences, other stuff for YouTube, just fitting in little regular pockets of time to work towards YouTube, I think is helpful. And so that's kind of how I'm doing it right now. But at other times when my schedule is a little bit more flexible, maybe what I'll do is I'll shoot a couple of videos on Monday, then I'll shoot the B-roll for those videos on Tuesday, then I'll respond to emails and other admin stuff on Wednesday, then I'll work on my other gig or something on Thursdays, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like that I kind of work on scheduling it out ahead of time and organizing my time so that I know that I have the time that I need for each of the projects that I have. And I also think one little sort of hack that I use to keep my time working for me is to use whatever system feels the most fresh or inspiring to me. Because I think so often we see videos or content telling us like, this is the one schedule approach that will work for you, or work-life balance approach that will work for you, when really it might not work forever, or it only partially works for you for this or that reason. But there is something to be said for using a new system that seems to inspire and motivate you. It's kind of like when you're into cooking a certain meal at home and then you tend to cook it again and again until you get kind of tired of it, and then you move on to the next thing you're into cooking. I think that systems and schedules for work when you're freelancing can work the same way, where it's like, I have the system and you know what, I'm going to try it out for the next few weeks and then maybe the next few months. But then a few months later, you're kind of tiring of the monotony and the same old structure and schedule. So maybe then you decide to switch it up. And so I think weirdly, like switching up your system, but also always having some kind of strategic system and schedule in place can really help. So I think switching it up, keeping it fresh, but always having a strategy really helps me. Another question I have that is actually from, I think, one of my real life friends who decided to respond to me on Instagram, which I think is kind of sweet of her. But she said, what is your birth plan or something that you hope for? It's a little bit up in the air about what my birth will look like because the baby is currently in breech. And right now I am like almost 8 months pregnant. A lot of babies are in breech up until pretty near the end of pregnancy. So up until now, I've been kind of like, oh, the baby will likely turn. As the weeks have gotten closer and closer to the end, the baby still being in breech, it went from, like only 30% of babies are still in breech at this point to only 15 to only 7 to only like 6%. So I'm at the point where, very few people have a baby in breech at this point. So it's looking more and more possible that I'll have to do a C-section, although maybe the baby will still turn and I won't. So I basically don't have a clear birth plan. I do have ideas about things that I would prefer. I do know the hospital where I'm going to be giving birth, and I've toured it, and I have a sense of what that environment will look like. I think that's most of what I can absolutely count on. Also, maybe this is getting almost quite personal here. I do at least now tentatively plan on an induction because that's what the doctor medically recommended for me. And I don't need to get necessarily into specifics, but I think it has to do with a combination of my history of infertility and timing my future MS treatments and infusions. It's just very complicated with all that. So she recommended that I do have an induction. That also is something I didn't plan on, but I'm adjusting, and in some ways I'm like, maybe there are good aspects to this that if I get to the 39-week point, at least I know like it's gonna happen then if it hasn't happened yet. So there's almost like a comfort in that. Because of that, I have this like newfound sense of I'm gonna go with the flow, and I feel good about that. Like I'm excited to just let what needs to happen, have certain things maybe that I'm gonna try to do or prioritize and communicate those to my doctor, and also communicate with my husband and, figure out what works best for me. But I, in a sense, don't have any like, I need to do it this way or I need to do it that way. I am gonna be flexible. And then I could keep going with other questions, but I'm starting to get tired. So I'm gonna do one more. What will your frequency be of posting videos post-baby? Do you have some pre-recorded? And this, I'm actually glad someone asked, just to let you all know that I am pre-recording a bunch of videos. So I plan to continue to put out one video a week roughly. I might miss a week somewhere along the way, I'm not sure. But it also helps that I have an amazing video editor, Tara. Shout out to her. She does such an amazing job. She is so on top of it. I don't know, she just does such a seamless job. And so I'm really grateful for her. And so I've been basically shooting a bunch of videos ahead of time so I can basically take about a month off of shooting and then slowly kind of ease back into it, but be able to send those to her to edit, even while I'm kind of taking some time off with the baby. And also the timeline of when videos come out versus what's happening in real life might be kind of wonky. I'm just gonna go with the flow, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna stop there because honestly, I'm getting tired from chatting so much. But thank you again for the questions. If you got this far, thanks for watching the entire Q&A. I hope that maybe in the future I can do more videos like this where I can answer more questions. I'm sorry I kind of cut it short today. That's all I've got for you. And don't forget, if you have more questions, feel free to add them in the comments below. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.